She was the one who held the bouquet. She stood at the front of the church in a pale blue dress, and she smiled, wide, genuine, full of what looked like love, as her sister walked down the aisle toward the man they were both about to promise everything to. One of them was promising to love him. The other was already planning something else entirely. Today, we are going to talk about a betrayal so specific, so personal, so completely devastating that therapists have given it its own category. It is called the sister wound. And dark psychology has studied it more carefully than almost any other form of family betrayal, because the damage it causes reaches deeper than almost anything else a person can experience. Because when a stranger betrays you, you lose your trust in that person. When a husband betrays you, you lose your trust in the relationship. But when your sister betrays you, you lose your trust in the one relationship you believed was unconditional by design, the one that existed before you knew what love was, the one you did not choose and did not need to, because it was simply there. Her name is Isabelle, and I want you to remember her name, not just as a woman who was betrayed, but as a woman who survived a kind of loss that most people cannot even imagine. Isabelle and her sister Margot grew up in the same house in Bordeaux, 2 years apart, Isabelle the older, Margot the younger. By most accounts, they were close. Not without friction. There was always that quiet competition, the comparison nobody names, but everybody feels. But still, close. The kind of close where you know each other's secrets, where you recognize the way the other person cries, where you are the first call in a crisis and the first laugh at a family dinner. Isabelle met Julien when she was 27. He was 30. Margot met him at the same time. He was Isabelle's boyfriend, then her fiancé, then the man standing at the altar, waiting for Isabelle to walk toward him. Margot was the maid of honor. She gave a speech at the reception that made everyone cry. She talked about watching her sister fall in love for the first time, about how Julien made Isabelle softer, more open, more herself. She talked about what it meant to watch the person you love most in the world choose someone who deserved them. Isabelle said later, it was the best speech she had ever heard. She kept the recording on her phone for years, watched it whenever she needed to remember that she was loved. 6 months after the wedding, Julien came home late one Thursday evening. He said he needed to talk. He had been sleeping with Margot since before the wedding. I want you to sit with that. Not just the betrayal, but the geometry of it. The sister who stood beside her at the altar, the sister who held her hand that morning, the sister who cried during the vows and called it a beautiful love story. Deep emotional weight. Dark psychology asks us not to see this as random, but as a pattern, a dynamic that began long before the wedding day. Psychologists call it triangulated envy. And to understand it, we go back to 2 little girls in a house in Bordeaux, being told in 100 small ways that there was only enough room for one of them to shine. In such families, something dark forms, not hatred, hunger. A hunger for what the other sibling has, not the things, but the feeling underneath them, the sense of being chosen. And when Julien arrived, something shifted inside Margot. Not fully conscious, but powerful enough to act. Dark psychology calls this unconscious sibling acquisition. Taking what belongs to the sibling, not as theft, but as correction. But listen carefully. This is not an excuse. What Margot did was betrayal. Real, painful, lasting harm. Understanding it does not mean forgiving it. Isabelle spent 3 years asking questions. Was the love real? Was her sister real? Dark psychology gives 2 answers. Yes, the love was real. Yes. And yes, the sister she knew was also real, but incomplete. Both versions existed at the same time. And somehow, that makes it worse. There are patterns in betrayals like this. 5 of them. Childhood comparison, feeling like the lesser sibling, being used as the standard, timing around major life milestones, and the absence of guilt in the moment. But what came next hurt even more. The family. They didn't choose sides. They chose balance. And in doing that, they erased her pain. That is the second wound, institutional betrayal. Isabelle didn't speak to her sister for 4 years. She moved, she healed, she rebuilt, and one day something changed. Not forgiveness, something deeper. She stopped waiting for something to be returned that was never theirs to give. Because the truth is, slow build. They didn't take your worth. They only made you forget it. And healing is remembering. Isabelle is 38 now. She has love, real love, not the kind she has to earn. She has peace, and the sister she lost is now just a closed door she no longer needs to open. She once said, "I thought I lost her at the wedding, but I had lost her long before. That day, I just found out." Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? Tell me in the comments, because some wounds are carried in silence. And here, you don't have to carry them alone. If this story touched you, subscribe, because next time we go deeper.